Hungry.
You're hungry?
Yeah.
What do you want to eat?
Wendy's.
When
Oh, Brandon, you
Wendy's?
remember that fabled night in freshman year when you had like 30 nuggets from Wendy's and threw up?
Tell it.
You want to tell the story, Brandon?
Yeah.
The fabled Wendy's night.
So Chris and I, we didn't live together yet, but I remember.
But we
Cody
effectively lived together.
I think Cody was gone for the week because he had left early to go back to Oregon.
Yes, I remember that.
And Chris and I wanted to trial being roommates for like a week. I think it was like before Christmas break. And we didn't really have money to go anywhere. We didn't have a car at the time. So we were like, let's Postmate something. Let's watch a movie or something. Trial being roommates. And I remember we Postmated like, I don't know,
a
like
shitload of Wendy's. A whole lot of Wendy's.
Yeah, it wasn't
we weren't very poor, so we ordered a bunch of Wendy's.
Well, it was like we didn't know that it was expensive for delivery fees at that point. We weren't new to that. We were new to this form of living. And then I remember like we had like 40 chicken nuggets or something. Chris had like 5, 10 maybe. I had the rest. I was just.
Oh my god!
I remember like looking over at one point and being like, "Damn, like you housed that thing."
Yeah, and then we go to bed. Everything's great. Middle of the night. Oh, I feel like I'm dying. Heartburn up the chest. I'm in Cody's bed, by the way. And I get out. I stumble to his bathroom in was it Southmoreland? Yeah, Southmoreland.
No,
North.
No, Mo. Sorry,
Northmoreland.
And I'm in his bathroom going for I don't know how long. I don't even know if Chris
till the sun rose.
Honestly, I think this was something I heard about the next morning.
Yeah,
so I was knocked out.
I was like,
so like Brandon woke you up saying, "Chris, I threw up."
Mom,
I flew up.
I flew up. Well, that's a great story to start off this episode of Stacked. Welcome back to Stacked episode 108. Everybody, you know that little throw up story. I think it actually fits the theme of the episode here. We're going to be talking about polarizing movies, and who's to say with a story about old Brandon upchucking, as you will. That's a pretty polarizing opening, wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't you? No?
No, you wouldn't, Brandon?
I think a lot of people like that story. They think they would laugh at that story.
Well,
go,
I think they would. Maybe I think there's a lot of people who would laugh at the story, but I think there's also a lot of people who get sick to the freaking stomach with that story. Maybe.
That's a real polarizing reaction.
Exactly. So why don't we talk about some polarizing movies, huh?
No, that's a good idea.
But what does it mean to polarize? You know what I'm saying?
What does it mean to pulverize, huh? What does it mean?
I'm not in hydraulic press.
What does it mean? We're gonna pulverize Brandon. We're gonna throw him in the hydrogen press and crush him. Brandon's. Let's roleplay Brandon's government-ordered death sentence, and this is in the year 2017. We're gonna throw him in to the hydraulic press. We're gonna crush him like a grape. We're gonna crush him. He scared away all the customers at Knott's, and for that we must crush him.
I worked at Knott's in 2017.
Yeah, you were just a little boy then.
Canon.
Okay. Yeah. Polarizing movies. Guys, we are talking about this today because I think when the weekend this episode drops, Ari Aster's Beau is Afraid will be releasing wide to every little nuclear family across the country. What? Who is this? My dog just came into the studio. He knows how to open this curtain. Go to your bed. Go to your bed, Buster. His name's not Buster. It's Oliver. That's just a little joke for humans and dogs.
That's just a little jokey joke for you.
Just a little banter between the human and the dog. Man's best friend. What was I saying? So Beau is Afraid is getting a pretty polarizing reception You know,
Yep.
I mean, and someone here can attest to that because he literally just got back from seeing it. So we'll get a little mini review of Beau's Afraid before we get into our picks. Chris,
Hello.
you shuffled your way onto the AMC Burbank 16. What theater were you in? What auditorium, huh?
Theater 3.
Do you remember your seat number?
H4, I think.
H4. All right,
Something like that.
listen, that's just more stacked lore. If you ever want to go to the AMC Burbank 16, ask for a theater in which theater were you in again?
3. Number
3.
3.
Theater 3, H4, and you could be sitting right where Chris sat when he watched Beau is Afraid. Isn't that crazy? That's for all the true Stacked fans. I bet Milo will. He'll go out of his way to do that. He's such a loyal fan.
Milo
Yeah,
truly
but he's
is a
met
loyal
us, so like he doesn't need to sit where we've sat.
What? He's still a fanboy, you know. Once a Stacked fan, always a Stacked fan. Even once you've met the boys and hung out with them. But Chris, anyways, what is Beau is Afraid? Don't spoil it. I want to know as little as I can. I've only seen that first trailer. I don't know what this movie is about.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I'm going to be very careful to make sure I don't spoil anything. So spoiler free. But yeah, Beau is afraid.
Boyle's Afraid.
Beau's Afraid is a very. The only way I can really describe it, it's like surreal, like magical realism, but that doesn't even make sense because it's kind of a double entendre. Yeah, it's. I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, the story is about a paranoid man embarking on a quest to return home to his mother. That's quite literally it. And throughout the movie, you unearth a lot of his past history and like what is driving his anxiety and all this stuff. So, and Aster, having seen like Midsummer and Hereditary, he kind of plays with that through the visuals. And this is definitely his most like, shall I say, ambitious of films in the sense that like there's just so much going on and so much at play all at once.
Yeah.
So it can be a little, at least in my experience, there were times where I found it a little overwhelming, but at the same time, like it still felt very concise too. So like it kept teetering back and forth between like being too much and too little in different areas. But that's just my thing though, because the thing is like Joey, who I went to go see the movie with, and Tori as well. Joey was a huge fan of it. He gave it a 4.5. Tori gave it a 4. I gave it a 3.5. For me, it's the among Aster's 3 theatrical films that I've seen. This is on the lower end for me, but nonetheless, still pretty strong. And like also just, Joaquin. We all like Joaquin here, right? Yeah, we do.
We all love him.
Yeah, we all like Joaquin. He's a good actor, and he plays this one well. He knows how to play kind of like a man-child almost, and. Yeah, I'm very excited to see what you guys think. It is a long movie; it's 3 hours. So do set aside some time. But man, there is definitely some stuff in here that like was. It's not like bone-chillingly scary as like say Hereditary or like as eerie as say Midsummer, but it has this kind of like discomfort to it because of like the topic at hand and just like the way he goes about telling the visuals, and like it's so and also this movie is honestly really funny. It is a dark comedy for sure. There's some moments that like are like laugh out loud funny. Like Ethan, you remember, Brandon, actually this probably isn't a spoiler. Ethan, remember the toilet in Skinamarink? There's like that level of like in this movie.
Oh my god.
I don't get it. I heard that this movie was a career killer for Ari Aster.
I can see why someone would say that. This is definitely like, because this isn't like, if you didn't tell me this was Ari Aster, if no one told me that Ari Aster directed this, I wouldn't think Ari Aster. Because Midsummer and Hereditary are very clearly him.
But also, it's like incredibly original, and he's not
exactly.
horror.
And it's cool that he's like breaking out. I love his horror, but it's cool to see him kind of dip his toes into something a little different. And I'm sure we'll get a horror film out of him again soon. But I don't know. I thought it was more than anything. I'm just glad that I got to see an original thing out of like a modern auteur director, which is, you know,
I heard
less
that
and less
he
nowadays.
didn't want to cut it below 3 hours.
But the thing is, like, one of my biggest critiques is, this movie could lose 30 minutes and it'd be fine.
Right.
In my opinion, though. That's just my opinion.
Honestly, and that makes me curious, right? If you
Herm.
let the filmmaker have a longer vision and they don't cut anything, I know like less is more in some cases, but if he added back all of the stuff he wanted to cut, would it make it a better movie? I'm not saying that if you don't cut 30 minutes off that it's not a great movie.
Yeah.
But like it could still
Who's to say?
Yeah, it's a great movie at 2.5 hours, but an even better movie at 5 hours. You know what I'm saying?
Whoa.
Yeah. So who's to say? But
true.
there's a lot of cool stuff. Brandon, I think you will dig it. I think you'll especially dig it. Ethan, I think you'll like it, just like kind of similar to Tori and I. I don't think either of you will dislike it, but that's just my assumption. So
Okay.
yeah, there you go.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing Beau's Afraid. Everyone, you can check out Beau's Afraid in theaters right now. We're not being paid by Beau's Afraid. He's actually okay. One thing that's freaked me out about Beau's Afraid before we get to our show, that kid
looks fake.
Yes.
Joaquin Phoenix.
My God,
He's real.
He's real.
He's a real
He doesn't
person.
look-
I thought he was some CGI like construct.
Yeah, something about like I don't know if it's the makeup or maybe this kid just looks like that.
He
But,
looks
like,
fake.
He's got like the smoothest skin. You know what I mean?
Dude looks like a fucking polygon.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Like he looks a little.
What is-
Doesn't he? Okay, like beyond like, and I don't mean this to be mean to the kid because like he did a good job in the movie. I'll give him that. But like
I'll give him his
he
props.
he kind of looks AI generated in this movie.
He does. It looks insane. I'm like, oh, they digitally recreated a young Joaquin Phoenix. That's what I thought it was, because they made an old one. There's an old version of Joaquin Phoenix, so they just used makeup for that. I'm like, okay, but de-aging, like, that makes sense. You can't do that with makeup. You can't physically make him smaller, unless they did like Hobbit shit. Maybe they should have done that.
Forced
That would be funny.
perspective. Small Joaquin
Yeah.
Phoenix.
Forced perspective,
Like-
Joaquin Phoenix.
Like it'd be like Jim Carrey in Eternal Sunshine, when he's like the little kid.
Yeah,
Anyways, but that kid is real, so
he is real.
maybe this is also just a PSA to any of our listeners. If you encounter this kid in real life, just
Bully him.
be aware.
Oh.
No, don't bully him. Just be aware that it's not like Glitch in the Matrix. All right, that is a real. That kid is supposed to be here.
That's a real child.
That code didn't break through between the movie world and the real world. He's real. All right, so stay alert. Stay alert. All right, let's get to our polarizing movies. Now, movies. How would you define a polarizing movie? Is it just movies that are like you understand why people love it, people hate it?
I think
I feel like
sorry.
that's one of the aspects for me. That's one. But then another is like movies that tackle taboo moral topics, I feel.
Mm.
Also makes a polarizing movie to me, because when you see that, you're like, whoa, nobody really wants to like get into this kind of stuff because it is such an uncomfortable topic to talk about, So when
That's
films
fair.
do that, I always get so impressed. But that was my criteria for figuring out my picks. What Brandon, what do you think is a polarizing movie?
I mean, when it comes to like reception, that's what the first thing that comes to mind is. And I guess in our modern age of filmmaking and film watching, you see it most with Rotten Tomatoes, the review aggregate scores. So my thing was more so capturing the divide between audiences and critics. And then, but also within that, audiences loving it or audiences hating it, like you said. There is like, when polarizing doesn't just mean that. Polarizing can also mean there's just like feelings all over the map about something. It doesn't exclusively always mean love and hate. But that is, I think, where we get like dragged into at most, because some people look at a movie and think that was a waste of time, I'm never going to watch it again, and then somebody else is going to think it's a masterpiece. But that, I mean, you could say that about any movie, but it's the strongest reactions that become the most polarizing films.
Yeah. What about you, Chris? How did you decipher like what was a truly polarizing film?
I think for me it was more just like the idea that of a film that has a very divisive reception and the discourse surrounding it being like it feels like you almost have to pick a side when you watch a movie, which I don't condone, because like I think everyone should just have their own perspectives on movies, and that's it. Because I mean, just a movie, it's not that big a deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, and for me, like I put to like for my little like list that I made of movies, it was like movies where I've seen people have like really interesting discourse about how they feel about the movie, and I can, like you said, can like, even if I might lean onto one side of the conversation, the like I can at least very least understand why someone might feel the opposite way. So yeah, that's basically it.
Well, all right. Let's get into our picks then. Can I start this, because this is actually a very relevant film that just came out.
I think you and I are thinking about the same movie. Did we see this movie together?
We all did. The Super Mario Brothers movie.
Okay, never mind. I was thinking about another movie. But let's talk about this. We may as well talk about this.
Because the online discourse for this movie is insane. Because critics fairly do not like this movie, and audiences, they're dying by this movie, you know? And you know, I feel like when we all saw it as a big group of 9 people, I feel like opinions varied across the board as well, you know?
Yeah.
They ranged from 2.5 to 5 stars.
2.5 to 5.
That's
you know, lots of varied
options.
opinions. And I want to talk about Super Mario Brothers because I feel like this is the beginning of a really interesting shift in how, like, I think this is the Iron Man for video game movies. I'm just gonna go out and say it. I think the way audiences are responding to Mario Brothers and how it was adapted from a video game, where it's like it's video game first, movie second, I feel, you know, is very interesting to see how people are just loving it. And then people who have a more traditional respect for conventions in film, you know, and film structure are not liking it so much, you know? Because, okay, I gave this movie a 4.5. It's my favorite movie that I've seen this year so far. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, this movie, oh my god, the script, guys. The script for Super Mario Brothers. Oh, the direction. Oh, the editing. The editing was so good. What a great paced movie. No, this movie is paced at like, I think this is the fastest paced blockbuster we've seen yet. And it's a trend that I absolutely hate.
We've talked about this. With like Snake Eyes,
we've talked about
Jungle
this trend.
Cruise, shit like that.
Snake Eyes, Jungle Cruise, Black Adam does the same thing. I think Super Mario Brothers is the worst case scenario. But why do I still love it? Because they take the same feeling I get when I watch Into the Spider-Verse, where I feel like I feel like I'm reading a comic book that's come to life, you know? When I watch Super Mario Brothers, I'm like, this is the video game that's just literally come to life, you know? And the story, it has that, you know, the story is plotted like a Mario video game, which is very thin and very nothing, you know? But if you play Mario and you know the Mario lore, you know, that's par for the course, you know? But they make sure to like put so much attention to detail into every just every polygon in that frame, in that animation, and how the characters move in their surroundings, their world building. I just found it to be something I would never see in my lifetime for Super Mario Brothers, because that was really like, I don't know, that's like a property that defined me and who I am. Like I can't even tell you how many hours Milo and I have been down in the basement playing Super Mario Brothers. Um, so that's why I was like so jazzed about that film. Why I loved seeing it with all you guys, and it's just gonna be an unforgettable experience. But then I totally understand why you guys gave it, a 3.5. Why it was just like fun but has big problems, right? Um, and then I can understand why people are saying this is an affront to cinema because it's hard for people to even argue that it has a narrative structure.
It is an affront to cinema.
It's an affront. It's affront to cinema, but it's a love letter to video games. It's curious. The mediums are clashing. They're warring right now. And what do you guys think of all of this? Like, I think it's crazy. It's interesting. The Mario Brothers,
Well, for me, I mean, like, I think one thing that distances you and I, Ethan, on our opinion of this movie is that, like, I wasn't a Nintendo kid at all growing up. Like, Mario was always someone I kind of saw from afar. I had a 3DS at one point, but my only exposure to Mario in my 3DS era was Mario and Sonic at the Olympics, which was a really great game, by the way.
Great game.
And Mario Kart, of course.
Of course.
You need Mario. That's almost like it's weird if you've never even touched Mario Kart at some point in your life.
Yeah.
But anyway, more to the point is that so I don't have very much nostalgic attachment to the Mario like franchise. But nonetheless, I very much enjoyed myself with this movie. I think like, of course, what you said, Ethan, about the script and the pacing, yada, obvious, right? What surprised me, I had no problems with the cast. I thought everyone nailed it.
No,
Like,
I thought Chris Pratt was great.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I remember like
I think the worst person was Cranky Kong. I think Fred Armisen
Yeah.
was horribly miscast as him.
yeah,
Like, you're not some cranky old man. You're just like you're just
some
doing a
dude.
weird voice.
Yeah, you're a
I don't know.
funny voice guy. But like,
Yeah.
but yeah, and like much like everyone when the announcement came out, like I was dogging on the cast because like, I mean, Chris Pratt as Mario, that's just hilarious as an idea. But like,
Yeah.
sure enough, guy did great. Anya did great. Troy Day did great. Jack Black blew it out of the water. Killed
Yeah.
could not have done better. Seth Rogen was solid. I think I'm very happy they let him do his laugh. That put a big smile on my face. But yeah, I'm not overly jazzed about this movie, but I did have a great time, and that's what I was after with this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think like Ethan, you were talking about like how about video game film adaptations, and I was actually thinking about this last night because I've been replaying Red Dead Redemption 2 because that game is so much fucking fun.
Yeah.
And and Ethan, we've talked about how like one thing that separates you and I as video game people is that you tend to lean towards these more, how do I say, like, I don't want to use this word because it sounds demeaning, but like arcadey, whereas I lean towards more
like
narratively.
platformers.
Yeah, you like platformers and movement games. I tend to lean like narrative and gun games.
Yeah.
And like Red Dead is very much a narrative game, much in the way like Last of Us is, which I still haven't watched. But like, but the reason I bring this up is because last night I was thinking like Red Dead 2, like what if they were to adapt this as a movie? And then it made me think like, oh, would this work? Because like the narrative aspect of the way this game is handled is like, it almost feels like a movie already. You know what I mean? Whereas like say Mario doesn't feel like a movie at all when you play that game because it's very much it's not that kind of game. So and what works for me is that I found it actually kind of cool that like in this game in the Super Mario's movie they didn't overdo his story. Granted, that was one of my critiques. I wrote like how I would have loved if they like maybe did a little bit more with Mario and his dad, so that at the end when they have I knew you could do it. I'm proud of you, son. Like it would hit a bit harder. But also like, is it that kind of movie? It doesn't have to be, it's not that big a deal. So, I teeter back and forth on this conversation about video games and how they should be adapted. Do they have to change things so that it fits like that kind of narrative mold that tends to work really well for film? But then again, I don't know. It's it's not up to me. But I think I had a great time with Mario. That's all I wanted from it, and they delivered. So I'm not going to complain. Barry, do you have any interesting takes about the Mario movie? You were kind of
Brain,
yeah.
you're even less of a gamer than the two of us, so I want to know what your take.
But I grew up on Nintendo. That's the difference.
That's true.
My first console outside of a PC, which I don't really think is. Oh, we shouldn't get into that. It's not. It's just not a traditional gaming console, right?
Kind of agree.
Right.
Yeah.
So, because like the WSASD is much different from a gaming controller specifically designed to play games on a device. But when I grew up, my Nintendo Wii was my first console, so I experienced all of like those platforming games that you're talking about. I played all the classics because they were on the Wii Shop, and I purchased those. And then I played every Mario game. I played Smash Brothers. I played Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. I played Super Sluggers. I played Mario Kart, New Mario Brothers or whatever, Mario Party.
Yeah.
So like I was a big Mario fan. Probably one of the few gaming franchises that I actually did like. So this was very exciting to me, and I remember remarking to Ethan 2 years ago when we knew this movie was coming out and we found out the studio who was doing it. Oh no.
Illumination.
We were like,
oh
worried.
yeah, Illumination.
And I'm not willing to say that I'm going to forgive the film for the flaws it has in order to give it a higher rating, but we all enjoyed it. Even our friend who gave it 2.5, not ratting them out here, but
just go on Letterboxd, guys. You'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out. We all enjoyed it, even he did.
That narrows it a bit.
But like I said, like just because it has issues doesn't mean it's a bad movie. I just think there are things that are definitely grating, but I also don't understand where some critics are coming from when they're framing negative devices around this movie, because I will write home about the editing and pacing of this film and the lack of character development. I know it's a Mario game. However, it is a movie, so I do expect a little bit more than just your stereotypical Mario plot and then switching the damsel for another character. So that's what really bugged me more about the movie. But did I think it was a very faithful adaptation of the game? Absolutely. There were so many references that you could pick up on. Like there was a Double Dash reference, there was an Odyssey reference, there's all of these different references to like Mario past and present, that it was like I never have felt like they've adapted the spirit of a game so earnestly. Like,
but is it reference or is it just world building?
But
that's the thing that I'm like trying to get with people, like saying, "Oh, look, there's so many Easter eggs." I'm like, felt more just like world building. Like if like I know all the Mario games like the back of my hand, and when I saw all that stuff, I was like, that's something that should be in a game about, or be in a movie about Mario, because that's the world.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying the world building's kind of thin, because I know why people are upset about it, because they're asking for explanations, and I know if we're going to this magical
and then
world,
there's no explanations.
Yeah, because it's like you've got the Kongs, who I don't believe in any of the games have been established as cart builders, or there's never really been a geography placed around like where things are and why they are. So it's kind of strange to have Illumination and probably Miyamoto come up with these little like, oh, you've always wondered this, but some of those answers are not always satisfying. And I can understand where the thinness would get on people's nerves, because for me, I'm like, I kind of expected a little bit more than just they have carts, they build carts, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, how did these monkeys anthropomorphic, and why are there, I don't know. It's just, you ask a little bit more. And I guess it's a fantasy movie, and if they have sequels,
I mean, you don't ask why hobbits are like around in Lord of the Rings. You're like, why are these humans tiny with big feet now? You know, like you don't have to ask that.
I just like, but that's because it's from like an established lore. Because if you look at high fantasy, it's not just like J.R.R. Tolkien establishing like dwarves and like elves and such. because before J.R.R. Tolkien there were fantasy writers.
Well, there's plenty of established lore too in all the Donkey Kong games. You know.
Yeah, with carts.
Yeah, Donkey Kong, Jungle Blast.
Anyway, I enjoyed this movie. I love the energy of the style.
It's not a real game. I don't want to lose my cred. That's not a real game.
I
There's
think
no such thing as
honestly,
Jungle Blast.
the music is where I stand the most staunchly opposed to people who are criticizing this film, because a lot of people are saying that there isn't enough music that is adapted from the games, and then another part of the contingency is saying the needle drops are bad because they don't relate to what's happening. And I'm like, I think they did a good job intermixing the two, and also it was a kid movie. So
someone broke down there's more than like 120 musical references within the score to Mario Brothers games, and that is just like, that is so impressive, and I think it sets a new standard to how to adapt a video game, because I truly believe that, like, to adapt a video game, you need the music, because in a video game, that music is always there. It's like, it's just the atmosphere. It's like in the air, you know?
Especially
because
for
it's
a
constantly
platformer.
Looping, you know? Especially for a platformer. But they do it in Last of Us as well. They use the same Last of Us music from the game.
Well, I wouldn't know
but
that,
I'm just like,
so.
Well, okay, well, that's what I told you.
Man,
you know, if you already knew that, maybe I wouldn't talk about it. Just kidding. I probably still would. But yeah, it's just like music in a video game adaptation is just as important as like getting the colors of costumes right in a comic book film or something like that. You know, because that is the frame. That is the frame that you're adapting from another piece of another medium. You know. It's also very interesting to see that two of the most successful video game adaptations in recent years have their original video game producers acting as executive producers for the movies. We got Neil Druckmann with Last of Us, and then Miyamoto was like, he's completely hands-on with his film. And I'm just wondering if that's going to set a new standard for Hollywood, you know? And I think that's a good idea. And I feel like, hell, Marvel and DC need to do that as well. You know, get actual comic book writers to look at your scripts and stuff like that. You know, have cinematographers work with comic book like artists. You know, to like create frames, to storyboard and stuff like that. You know, I don't know. I feel like to adapt, you need to work together. You know, instead of just always looking from afar and trying to replicate something else that's in a completely different medium. You got to work together with those artists. And I see that as something good. All right, we've been talking about Mario for way too long, guys. Let's talk about some other polarizing films. Chris, give us one.
All right, I'm gonna throw this one in because the discourse on this movie has been unbelievable. But hey, I love a good conversation about it, and I love this movie. Ethan, you do too. Brandon, you like it. You don't love it. I think you actually you quite like it. I'm talking Babylon. We haven't talked about Babylon on this show yet.
So we're talking about a lot of modern movies. I see.
A lot of modern movies. I'll get some older ones later.
Yeah, I got a couple older ones.
But this is good. Babylon. Yeah, tell us about it, Chris.
So, for anyone who doesn't know, Babylon is the fourth film directed by Damien Chazelle, the filmmaker behind Whiplash, La La Land, and First Man. This movie is centers around three main characters during the 1920s and 30s in Hollywood, and kind of goes about telling their stories about, and the whole thing is like, it's emblematic of how like depraved and disgusting this industry is, but also why it's so powerful and meaningful to people. That's essentially it. And then like each character kind of has their own like uniquely turbulent relationship with the industry and whatnot. And so with Babylon, I found it to be a very stirring movie. I really enjoyed just about everything in it. I found it to be really meaningful in what it talks about in terms of like how manipulative and destructive this industry is and the people within it are, but also reassuring you with this kind of magic of why are these movies so meaningful to people, and why do we connect to them so much? And it kind of held up a mirror to me in that way, because it made me feel really like it helped me feel like it validated almost like my relationship to the art. It made me feel kind of like, wow, like even through all this awful stuff that happens in the industry and continues to happen in this industry, there's a little something in there that makes it meaningful. Doesn't excuse the terrible things, of course, but it makes you realize, like, yeah, like this shit means a lot to some people, and here's why. Um, yeah, and that's basically it. I mean, like um, uh, Kitty Walsh, our old professor, she wrote on Letterboxd, "Is this a love letter to cinema or a suicide note?" And I think that's a really good way to put this movie.
That's perfect.
And also, I suppose, in its own way, a way to leads us into the conversation of why it's so polarizing. Some people are really not into this movie, and I can see why.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that just kind of feels. I mean, like, I can even point out flaws in its structure. I can see it feels kind of disparate in some places, and like doesn't feel like it coalesces into much for some people. My directing professor in college, I'm not in college in at LMU. I'm not gonna name him. He has a movie on Netflix. I'll just leave it there. He I asked him, like, oh, like,
Martin Scorsese.
that'd be hilarious. But like he was not big on it, and I asked him, like, what was it, and he was like, he just doesn't like him. He just said, for him, he said he just doesn't like Damien Chazelle's directing. He said he's he feels like he's very hackish, and I'm like, okay, like that.
Whoa.
I mean, hey, everyone's got their opinion. But like for me, I personally found this movie to be really powerful. Do either of you might be able to articulate the opposing side to the discourse?
Yeah. So I think this is an intensely crude film.
Oh, it's very
About
it's very
it's
crude.
a very crude in terms of its like visual content and in terms of like the topics that it's tackling, you know. And it has to be. It's very maximalist. It's not like Baz Luhrmann maximalist, you know. But it has to be maximalist in a sense to show how dramatic the industry changed when sound was, you know, was brought into the cinematic medium. Um and I think people just had a tough time reading that as like, oh, this movie is overly crude to prove a point, not this movie is overly crude because that's what Damien Chazelle is saying that's exactly how it was back then. You know?
Yeah.
Um no, there wasn't diarrhea elephants and like guys putting bottles up their butts, probably, or like a big fat naked guy getting like pissed on, you know.
And
Probably there was, I don't know, but like that wasn't like that wasn't every day, you know. Uh, it's just showing that like Hollywood was started by a bunch of weirdos in the middle of the desert, being able to just do what the fuck they want, and then once sound was introduced, that also introduced accountability and like now like image and like a public persona, you know, because before that public persona was just your face. It was just images your face, you know. If you looked good, like if audiences loved the way you looked, then you're good. But now you actually have to like, now with sound you actually have to like present yourself as like a gold standard, you know. And it just shows like how that is just like that's perpetuated like all of cinema history, or changes like that change the people within them, and the people who can't keep up with those changes fall behind or die, you know. Now I'm not saying like actually die, some of them actually died, but like their careers died, you know. But yeah, I think this movie's a masterpiece, but I also understand why people would find it very abrasive for its length, its crudity, is that a word? I don't know, it's crudeness, that's a word. And yeah, Brandon, you were the least warm on it, but you still liked it.
Yeah.
Try to indulge us, like why are people hating it?
Well, I feel like it is okay. Look at Damien Chazelle's two depictions of Hollywood. He has his La La Land depiction of Hollywood, and he has his post First Man depiction of Hollywood, which is Babylon.
Oh.
So if you're looking at La La Land, it's very magical. You hope your hopes and dreams come true if you really work hard for it, even if you let things go. But you'll get to make the art that you want to do. Yay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oliver didn't like
Yeah,
it.
Oliver
Oliver
disagrees.
was not
He
into that.
hates La La Land.
He said, fuck that movie.
Shut up. Oliver, come here. Come on, bud. It's okay. La La Land's not that bad. Go to your bed. There you go.
But essentially, when we look at but then he did First
Hush.
Man, and First Man, crapped on by the industry, looked over for awards. Yes, critics loved it, but like audiences kind of shunned it because it's an adult drama, not a stereotypical biopic. It took its liberties when it did, and it's really well done. But you can understand why I think a modern audience would turn away from something like that. And then you look at Babylon. Man gets a lot of money from Paramount, who's willing to take a risk on him because no other studio is willing to, essentially. And it's so jaded and cynical. It's overlong for some. And for me, I think certain scenes do drag on way too long. I mean, there are great scenes in that movie, but it's him not writing a suicide note necessarily, but telling Hollywood off. Because you have directors who work in tandem with Hollywood, a one for you, one for me approach. I think Chloe Zhao with her Marvel movie. I think James Mangold with his indie movie. He can do an adult independent drama, then he can do a big blockbuster movie. David Lowery comes to mind. He does like Ghost Story, and then he does Pete's Dragon, and then he does like Peter Pan, and
the Green Knight.
Whereas, like, I don't think some artists are willing to compromise their vision of what they can do, and that's why you're never going to see, I don't think, a Jordan Peele or a Damien Chazelle or Ari Aster even working on a big budget movie that is IP based. So when I look at Babylon, it's a middle finger to a lot of the industry who works on those movies, who likes those movies, and those movies are the most successful ones. So I don't necessarily think the movie is a poorly made film. I really like it. I do have issues with it. I take issues with the pacing. I do take issue with certain aspects of the direction, but I do think there is also, much like the Mario movie, an energy to it. It's kinetic. It's kind of Scorsese-like. When it comes to like how he shoots comedy, which isn't really comedy, but it's comedic in the way that it comes together. And he also has this sense of tension that is really good, and you can see that all throughout his work. Whiplash, First Man, this. But I can understand why people don't like it and can see it and go, this is a shallow, cynical portrait of Hollywood, and I don't like it. Makes me sick to think of Hollywood as this way, even though we just came out of a Me Too area where we found, we're not coming out of it, we're still in it, but where we found out
it's over.
It's over.
We ratted them all out.
COVID's
it's over. Sexism is over.
Yeah.
We did it, guys.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Even though like we are in that era, it's people are still not willing to recognize that the Golden City is not so golden as they put it up to be.
Yeah.
And that goes beyond the great characters in that movie and their arcs. Like Brad Pitt's character genuinely has a fantastic arc in that movie.
So good.
Yeah, so good.
And so does Diego Calva and Margot Robbie, but I think they're going to be overlooked because the style is just so apparent and the tone of the direction is just so apparent that it's going to bother people till the end of time.
Yeah. Something I really like about this movie as well are the two side characters. The trumpet player, the black trumpet player, and the Asian woman, the Asian actress. I found like their identities as like minorities within Hollywood at the time to be surprisingly like authentic, at least like from my point of view, quite authentic, especially like with how just throughout the movie you kind of see like how their journeys move parallel to the main three. And you kind of see like, man, they came out of this the best. at least within the confines of this story. Um,
Yeah.
and like I don't know, like I just found it to be like compelling, like how the film is able to tackle so many different characters, but like play each of them really well and like articulate something really interesting about each of them and how they have felt about the industry. I mean, like obviously, like the trumpet player, there's a scene where he has to do something pretty like you'd never ask anyone to do that nowadays. I'll just put it that way. Um, and like yeah, and you see like how that took a toll on him and took, but like it's amazing to see like how these characters are put through these situations and emerge and how they emerge from them and how that interlinks with like how the how films interact, how film as a medium interacts with people and the viewers, how it touches them in the same way that making films touch people also touches people. And I don't know, also just more than anything, this movie's also just fucking fun. It's
Yeah.
funny. This movie's really
It's
funny.
funny. It's so funny.
Um,
Oh man.
Also, like Jeff Garland, can't get enough of that guy.
Jeff Garland. He's great.
He's so.
We gotta
good.
go to Flappers, go see him every Sunday night.
All right, who wants to
gotta
throw in
go.
the next movie?
Brandon, throw in another one.
The first thing that comes to mind, we're slowly moving backwards through time, and I kind of apologize if this is a long episode. Mother.
Dude, it's on my
This
list.
this is a double stack. Okay, I guess this is a triple stack because it was on my list too.
Yeah.
This movie is like, it's a biblical story told very personally, and you wouldn't realize it if you're, I guess, not aware of biblical literature. But this was the first movie that came to mind when you guys pitched Polarizing Movies, because we look at this movie, Rotten Score and Rotten Tomatoes. It's not really a cult classic yet. We'll get to those eventually, I assume, in an episode. But when we look at this movie, it doesn't really follow the traditional story structure of like a hero's journey. It's about a woman who's in a house and she constantly has intruders coming in and messing things up for her.
Yeah.
And it's extremely stressful. It's extremely anger inducing, but at the same time, it's a little funny and ironic because it's playing upon a lot of things we're seeing today: climate change, I think wars between not just religions, but like culture wars.
Yeah.
And it's like a microcosm just built inside one house that is meant to be like essentially a Garden of Eden-esque place. I mean, it's Mother Nature, for fuck's sake.
It's a diorama of our planet,
right?
The house,
And
you know?
and for the life of me, I don't understand why people don't like this movie. I get it; it's a little out there. You think it goes over their head?
Over their heads. I think that's the whole
Yeah.
reason why. And they're just like, and it's also a film that like makes you very stressed out. You know, like
It's not pleasant.
It's
you know what I mean?
It's a very anxiety-inducing film of like, I can't believe how well Aronofsky was able to capture like the anxiety of like, oh my god, okay, people are in my house and they're touching my things, and now they just he sat on the sink and now the sink is broken and this and just like everything, and it just kept going and going, you know, and it's just like you don't know how to handle yourself when there's a stranger in your home and they're not doing what you want them to do. There's a sense of helplessness that he was able to excellently communicate and project upon the viewer, and I think a lot of people just took that as like, I hate this movie. Why is this movie doing this to me? You know?
They're uncomfortable.
But for me, I'm like, this movie's making me feel fucking crazy. I love this, you know? I want to feel like I'm like stressed. Like,
I mean, it's exciting.
There's very few movies that can make me feel like I'm losing, like I'm pulling my hair on my head, you know? I'm like sweating, you know? It's like, it's crazy. And I've never seen a movie so, I don't know. It's like, it's so dense, but there's so much to it, you know? And I love, like, yeah, it's just basically just talking about like first reformed organized religions fucking up our planet, you know? The heart within the house is dying, and because there's so many people who create this religion about Javier Bardem as this writer, you know, they destroy the house, and they take up the house, they destroy it. Spoilers, they tear a fucking baby in half,
That was
That was
crazy.
insane.
I
Oh
think
my
that's
God,
Oh my
I
God.
remember
another
that.
thing. Like if we're talking about polarization, it's not just about reception; it's about content, and I think that is another thing.
Content.
Yeah, like
Yeah. No, it was like, oh man, when they, when I can't see like my grandparents being like, oh, I really enjoyed it when they pulled the baby in half. They
Didn't
tore
they
the
eat the
baby in
baby
half.
too? I think there's a
Yeah.
shot of them eating. Yeah.
Yeah, they eat the baby too.
yeah, but
Oh
like
Yeah,
my God.
I can't see my aunts and uncles being like, oh, that was a good
yeah,
movie,
but they're viewing it from a surface level perspective, and unfortunately,
Exactly.
I think as a society we have become accustomed to being spoon fed things.
Yeah.
And to interpret it as, oh, it's just them eating a baby is not a fair, just a fair assessment of what happened. It's
Yeah, oh, they just decided to eat the baby. This movie's fucked up. I'm out of here.
yeah, exactly. It's not a fair.
This was a great film to come out our freshman year of film school.
Yeah,
Yes,
because-
at the time, very challenging for me. This was a
And
challenging movie for me
yeah.
at the time. Yeah.
everybody hated
Here,
it,
I heard this movie was so challenging, I skipped it. I didn't
Same.
even see it till
But I didn't have
I
money.
didn't see it until years later. But I just remember hearing everyone in film school was like, "Oh yeah, we saw Mother. We hated it. What was that movie even about?" And I was like, "All right, I guess I won't go see it." Because because we were poor college students. Like, oh, I can only afford to go see a couple movies. And I'm not gonna go waste it on a movie that I guess sucks.
Crazy enough, I'm the only one of the three of us who saw it in theaters when it came out. I saw it with Troy.
And you saw it with people who hated it.
I saw it
right?
with people who hate. I mean, I think Troy was fine on it. I'm not gonna name the other two just because I haven't really talked to them in like 3 years. There's two other people that came. They were not into it, and our theater was completely empty except for one other guy, 2 rows down from us. Right? He's got a penguin beanie hat on. I remember this very specifically because in the movie I remember just laughing at like, there's a guy with a penguin beanie. And then so the movie ends, right? The credits start rolling. The music's going. This guy, okay, I'm gonna reenact it for you. This guy in his chair, he stands up, turns to us, and goes, "What the fuck was that?" and then we were all just like, "I don't know, man." But like as time went on, like that movie did stick with me because there's a lot at play with that movie, and like I think at the time, like I didn't grapple with all of it, but like what you guys said about religion, what it says about the world and how we like deify people for no reason other than they're talented, probably.
Yeah.
And like I know, and then it ties into like Javier Bardem is God, the house is our planet, Mother is Mother Nature, and how all these crazy things that happened to the movie. I remember when like the house like looked like it was getting like raided by the FBI. I was like, what the fuck? Where did this come
There's like
from?
riots and shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, but like this is like you guys said, it's a microcosm of our planet. This is the kind of shit that goes on like every day nowadays.
It's overpopulated, It starts out a party,
Exactly.
everybody's in Eden, and then the sink breaks, and everybody's
Yeah.
like, I don't know what to do.
And like, the way the movie
It's not
ends,
braced.
like that's cyclicity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of how like it ends. She wakes up in the bed. Blah blah blah. And that's like, really think about it. Every time our planet has some mass extinction event, the exact same thing happens. It's an endless cycle of how our planet works until the galaxy decides that we're just not going to exist anymore.
You think dinosaurs were like that one day? They were like, the sink's not braced.
Also, like another thing for me about this movie is like this movie plays into a very specific anxiety that I have as someone who like I don't have diagnosed OCD, but I swear to God I think I have OCD because you guys know
Chris, I think you have OCD.
I'm not surprised because I think I have OCD.
That's not a bad thing though. I like literally everybody I know has OCD. I have some OCD too.
Yeah.
But
like dude, like down to like the like, oh no, don't go in that room, or don't use that, or like the sink overfilling, and I'm just
like let me do this for you. You're in my house.
I got
Let
you.
me get you this.
Yeah. And and just the way that it goes about it, where you're kind of like placed into Jennifer Lawrence's shoes, where it's like you're kind of like oh frantically like trying to like keep order, and it's like, and that like if God forbid if some fuck like came into my room and just started like flipping sheets, I like even if it was like just like moved my blanket, I'd be like.
I did that when I lived with
wait until you move in with me, Chris.
Hey,
Hey, good morning. Oh, this bed looks fucking comfy. I'm taking this from my bed. You pull off the sheets. You're like, no.
see, but like, I feel like this is where the sheep of public opinion comes into things, especially with art.
The sheep.
Yeah, because like with art, like especially when you're an
Sheeple.
impressionable film student who only believes that a film is supposed to entertain, I think that
Yeah.
is like where you're like, I just want to fit in, and I just want people to
Yeah.
agree with and to talk about how shit this is, because that
Yeah.
brings people together.
That
Unfortunately,
is a good point though. Like I think another aspect to what makes films polarizing is when it's like the difference in the audience that we're talking about. Like what, like for example, if I were to, like, I'm not gonna, this is something that I've learned recently is like when I'm gonna do a movie night with someone, my first thought isn't what do I like that they haven't seen. My first thought is what would they like that I would recommend for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's because, like, yeah, obviously, like, I'm Ethan. I'm not gonna sit you down and make you watch, say, well, actually, no, you're pretty open to everything. Okay, let's, but like,
Okay,
I'll watch it.
Brandon.
Yeah.
No, it's just
Brandon, we're not gonna sit you
No,
down and be
Brandon,
like,
you're
I got
okay.
this really great desert movie for you. It's Italian too.
Oh
All right.
God.
yeah, I got a great spaghetti western for you, Brandon.
Yeah. Oh no.
You're gonna love it, and like, but yeah, exactly. Like, it depends on your audience, and it can, like Brandon said, it can come down to just like, like how an average audience member, to no fault of their own, obviously, like when you go to the movies, an average person is just gonna want a fun time and an entertaining time.
Mm.
Nothing wrong with
Yeah.
that, but like, like mother is not that. You know what I mean? So,
Jesus.
I'm just saying, like, that's another aspect to it. Mother is not a particularly pleasant movie, but it's a thought-provoking one.
Can
at
I
least
bring
for
up
us.
a series, like a
Sure, why
series
not?
of polarizing films, like not just one movie, but like as a whole?
Oh, it's multiple films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
I'm gonna
Sure.
do the Star Wars prequels.
That
as-
is a good one.
Ah.
because I think
It's interesting how how the discourse has changed as people have gotten older.
right, because it can't be a cult classic because it was initially successful upon its critical release. Like, I would say critically some of them were, but even more so financially. So it wasn't like a cult classic. It's like the reevaluation and maybe where people came from. And I'm kind of curious to see if this falls into where the sequels sort of come into play. But there was less like one artist behind that and more of conglomeration. Whereas with the prequels, it was just George Lucas,
Yeah.
So as much as like I really love the original trilogy of Star Wars, I have coldened on it. I don't know. I've frosted.
The original trilogy?
No, on this franchise as a whole.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we've talked about
As much as I've like kind of distanced myself recently, I will admit like it was a very formulative franchise for me. And then seeing the prequels, I do remember thinking that I couldn't get through the first one without falling asleep as a kid. But now as an adult, I kind of recognize that there is some really great storytelling, at least from a narrative perspective, in those movies when it comes to the depiction of more, again, akin to Mother, like a religious sort of sect mixed with a political background. And I think that's really interesting. But a lot of people who are fans of the franchise just have an expectation. These movies are supposed to be what the original trilogy was, and that's not what these are. And then they come out disappointed and angry.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could tie into that with the DC films too, but I thought it was most prevalent in Star Wars. So
it's just interesting that, like, I don't think a lot of people understood at the time that those movies, those prequel movies, are just as anti-war narratives as the original. Because the first Star Wars, that's a response to Vietnam. That was Lucas, like, and prequel movies starting with Attack of the Clones, they're very post 9/11, critical of George Bush and like how he handled like Middle Eastern conflict. In the early 2000s, those prequel movies are all about that, and just being like how very many religious Americans, those are sort of like the Jedi Knights, and how they're leading us into this path that's like causing a lot of destruction. I still, I don't think Lucas was very good at directing them.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean,
listen, I think he's
Phantom
great-
Menace,
yeah.
perfect movie in my opinion.
Uh,
Revenge of the Sith, it's a good movie. Attack of the Clones, I think Attack of the Clones is a horrible movie. I'll never defend that one.
but I'd rather watch
still,
it than like Rise
I would
of
rather-
Skywalker. So
Yeah, I honestly would rather watch that than Rise of Skywalker. Even though I probably gave it a lower rating than Rise of Skywalker, I'm just like, there's still more interesting things in Attack of the Clones. You know?
I agree.
Interesting and unique things, you know? Where I feel like Rise of Skywalker, that movie's just like a whole lot of nothing. But yeah.
Yeah. For me, like with
good.
Star Wars, it's like, I mean, like one thing that I found interesting about Star Wars is that because it's a franchise that's stuck around for so long. I mean, 75, like that's 25, 20 show. I don't want to do math right now. 50 minus 2 is 48. 48 years.
48.
The movie's been, wow, I'm really bad at math. We're film
That's-
majors.
Hey,
That's the math
we're
you
film
struggled
majors. We're
with?
not fucking math majors. I've said this before on the show. Cut us some slack here.
But
We're not
anyway,
math majors.
But okay, so
Go listen to a math podcast if you want
like
to listen to that stuff.
this, like, yeah. One thing I found interesting is because it's been around for so long, you kind of have these like differing like generations within the Star Wars fandom. So obviously you have the people who love the originals. I mean, I feel like almost everybody will agree the originals are some of the best stuff that
Yeah.
Star Wars has to offer, almost universally. But like, you know, you have like the classic trilogy, like, you know, people, and then you have the prequel lovers, and then that also comes with prequel deniers.
Yeah.
For a long time, a friend of ours, Ali Gooch, was raised in a household that was strictly a prequel deniers.
Really?
Yeah, but then she got around to it, and then she ended up loving Revenge of the Sith. She loves Revenge of the Sith.
Great movie.
You know, and then I think it's a great movie too. And like, you know, then you have the sequel the people who maybe grew up in this. I mean, like, and I know it's pretty recent, but like 2015, there are people who are 8 years old when that movie was made.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, you know, not that young. And yeah, so like, because of that, that's also why these films are so polarizing, because there's so many different people who have different expectations for what Star Wars is and what Star Wars should be. I mean, like, for example, I was a Clone Wars kid. I really liked the Clone Wars show. But Mandalorian, I like the first 2 seasons. I'm not really jazzed about the third. And that's just me. But like Rebels, I don't really care for. Rogue One, loved. Solo, didn't even bother. You know what I mean? And like, it's just like,
Ooh.
You didn't even see it?
I never even saw it.
It's not
Whoa.
that bad. It's not that bad. It's
Yeah,
Joey would beg to differ.
It's
yeah,
mid,
Joey's wrong. So
but yeah, I mean
yeah.
that's another great example of like, yeah, another polarizing franchise.
What Filoni's doing with Star Wars right now is like, I've never seen so much inside base. Like, people are getting mad at like the amount of inside baseball in the Mario Brothers movie. In order to understand what's going on in The Mandalorian right now, you have to have watched a show that aired on Disney XD. You know, who in their right mind's gonna be like, oh yeah, I gotta. Oh, you know, this literally the whole next, like, they're building up this big bad. That was literally a character. Sure, he was introduced in Legends. I'm talking about Grand Admiral Thrawn. That's like they're all building up to him being like the big bad between like Mandalorian and Ahsoka.
and that's what the movie's gonna be. Which, by the way,
And the movie's gonna be a culmination of that.
and it's gonna go up against Avatar 4. Is the?
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you're not gonna make it. It's gonna be DOA
That's great.
on arrival.
Yeah, that like.
I never
I'm just
thought
like,
I'd get to the point where I wouldn't want to watch a Star Wars movie in theaters, but I'm kind
You
of.
think you're not gonna watch that one?
No, why would I? If I'm not gonna watch like Ahsoka or Mandalorian, you know.
I guess. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Anyways, Mando season 3 is kind of garble, which makes me so sad because I love the first 2 seasons. All right, let's talk about more polarizing movies that aren't like franchises. I want to talk about a filmmaker that I think is the most polarizing filmmaker who has ever worked in this biz.
Harmony Korine.
D.W. Griffith.
Okay, not those guys, but good picks, guys. I'm gonna go with one of my favorite directors,
Taika
one of my
Waititi.
favorite Japanese directors. No, Nagasio Oshima.
Oh,
His films, um, are just incredible, and he was never afraid to tackle uh topics in sex, in taboo topics in sexuality, in social standards, in uh talking about the death penalty and war, prisoners of war. He's had countless films, in the realm of the senses. Uh,
You
Merry
mentioned one of
Christmas, Mr. Lawrence.
you mentioned one of his movies recently on the
I mess.
podcast.
I think I mentioned
Max
Death by
Mon
Hanging.
Max Moore.
Well, that's the one I'm going to talk about here. I think that one is the poster child for how much of a polarizing director he is, because this film is a completely serious drama about a woman who falls in love with a chimpanzee and has sexual desires with a chimpanzee,
Oh,
and
I,
frequently has sex with a chimpanzee throughout the film. Um and it is, they make the chimp out like, they do even better, like, Planet of the Apes makeup for this chimp. I was like astonished how well they did it. um where did Brandon go?
he went to go use the
He's gone.
bathroom.
God damn it, go before the show. God damn it. All right. um
Well, I mean, like,
but yeah.
yeah, I think I might have seen one of Nagatsuo Oshima's films before. Did he do Double Suicide?
I don't think
Oh wait,
so.
Double Suicide Japanese Summer. Is that what I'm talking about? I've seen another movie called,
um
but I don't know if this is the one. Okay, well, anyway,
Anyways.
that's great. Wait, okay, so a sex of like, so this woman has sex with the. Oh wait,
Yeah, so
hold on. My Audacity crapped out. My file is still
okay.
here. I just have to reboot it. I have to export first.
We're stopping the show. Sorry about that. Brandon pissed himself. Brandon pissed on Chris's mic, actually, so
I did not.
we had to fix. Yeah, you did. Nagashi Oshima, Max Monomore, crazy film about just him being able to see as far as he can go in social taboos. I feel like uh zoophilia, is that what it's called? I think so. That is a very I feel like that's all an agreed upon, mostly agreed upon taboo uh in our worldly society, to not have sex with animals, with non-consent animals. But here in Nagase Yoshima, he tries to, push those barriers, and it makes for Brandon. I think you would love this film because it is very Buñuel.
Yeah, I love
In
the
terms of it,
surreal. I love the
it's
idea of that.
no, but in terms of like how characters like present themselves and act in these, very Buñuel. Um, and I just wish that people could find a way to watch this movie. It is so hard to find and watch. I had to wait till this shit came on Mubi, and I can't get this on physical media anywhere. I want it so bad. Um, but if you can't find Max Monomore, please watch Empire of Passion, In the Realm of the Senses, Death by Hanging, Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. All films that talk about really intense subject matters like genital mutilation, um, at the time, homosexuality in the army during World War II, from different sides. Um, the death penalty, of course. How the Japanese treated Koreans after World War II. Um, and just like revenge and desire, um, from both from people of all genders. It's crazy. He's such a good director. Um, and he makes sure that these themes are making you unsettled and uncomfortable. So he's able to break it down for you. And I'm just like, I I've only seen 6 of his films. I gotta get through more of them. Like, this is a director whose filmography I really want to complete, but it's so hard to find his films. without, some are on Criterion, but a lot of others are just like, I mean, Chris, we talk about this all the time with like, it's really hard to find quality like copies of films from the East,
Oh
which
yeah.
is crazy. But this is another director where it's just like it's hard to get a hold of his stuff. But Brandon, you've seen Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, so I think you have like a slight idea of like sort of how he approaches like
There's like
taboo subject matter.
magical
you know?
realism to it, which is kind of weird to approach like taboo with, because you often think of taboo and it's going to be grimy and gritty, and sometimes it is, but his movies, like, they view it in a weird lens that tonally doesn't make it so terrifying of a concept. Because the reason why I think people are concerned with these ideas is not because, well, maybe because they are disgusted by them, but more so I think it's because of the uncertainty, because it's not something they know a lot about. So Oshima makes it easy for them to sort of talk about and like try to conceptualize into an idea of a movie. And I don't know anything about this movie, but I can only assume.
Yeah. Highly recommend you go check out his films, guys.
Chris, do you have any?
I like another film or anything to say about this guy?
Either.
If you haven't seen any of this, we can go on to the next film.
Yeah.
Give us another film. Let's quickly go through some more because we're going a little over time here.
Yeah. I'll hit you guys with Don't Look Up.
No.
I haven't really talked about this on the show yet.
Fuck that movie.
I know. That's why I bring it up.
Okay.
I know Brandon is on one side of the spectrum, and I think Ethan and I are somewhere in the middle on this.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. Okay, so Don't Look Up. Don't Look Up is a story about two low-level astronomers who discover a planet-killing asteroid on its way to destroy planet Earth, and it's about them kind of trying to figure out what the fuck are we going to do, trying to talk to the politicians to see if they can organize some shit to figure this out. And yeah, more than anything, this whole movie's thing is that it talks about how basically how incompetent the government is, and basically is an examination of like, really, like if something like this were to happen, do you think the world would pull together and figure something out? Maybe, but this movie takes a much more bleak approach to it. It plays for comedy, of course, but it very much is it's a much more pessimistic view on what would happen. Very corporate, very your usual the American capitalistic way, and it's kind of an indictment of that in that sense. But where this movie's polarizing aspect comes in, at least for me, is that as much as I like the idea of this movie and what it does and all that stuff, I don't like the way it goes about it. It feels very lectury and also just kind of like great. Yeah, the US government isn't exactly the most competent in the world. Got me there. Like big news. And so that's why this movie I think gets such a big spectrum of reception, because even beyond just like people who disagree with the messaging of the movie, even people who agree with the messaging of the movie like I do, just doesn't like the way it is conveyed, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Ethan, I feel like you probably feel the same way. But Brandon, I know you're quite adverse to this movie.
It's just
let me just talk about this
new.
quickly, Brandon. Yeah, you can get into it because I know you hate this movie, and I don't. I think this movie's okay. I think it's talking about something important, but I just don't think it's talking about it in a clever way. I think it's so heavy-handed and done before. If you've explored, there's way more smarter films out there that talk about subject matter this way, which is why I wasn't the most warm on it. Brandon, do you want to get into it and why it's abysmal?
Well, for me, I think it's like it takes the lol so random approach to a very serious issue. And
that's true. I can see that.
And it's like, okay, like this feels very internet humor, and I can go into why I don't love the chaotic editing style. But I mean, I agree with the messaging of the movie and what it's saying. Like, I agree with the allegory for climate change and the fact that corporations basically run our government and our politicians are some of the dumbest people out there. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
like sugarcoat it, but like Adam McKay's direction is just so abrasive. And yes, I can see that he's dripping with anger like everyone else is, but he takes it too far with his movies, I think, to the point where it doesn't feel like it's a movie. It feels very much like a propaganda that I agree with. And it doesn't come across as like a very compelling argument when it's like doing jokes like that Ethan said that are nothing new, or it's presenting it in a way that is I wouldn't say lighthearted, but because it is abysmal, but and it's like and it's nihilistic, but like there are other films that I think do this better. I mean, this is actually like one of my favorite subgenres. I used to be so afraid of disaster movies when I was growing up. But
Yeah.
I love movies that examine how human beings react to the idea of something major happening, a big mass extinction event, whatever it is. I love movies like that. One of my favorite movies to deal with this is Miracle Mile, which does it on a very grounded level.
Oh,
Or
so good.
even a more, I don't even know if you guys have seen this movie, but it's a movie from like 2012 that was an independent film called Seeking a Friend for the End of the World, which again, very personal level. And that's a film with Steve Carell and Keira Knightley as they live their last week on Earth, knowing that there's an asteroid coming to hit the Earth. And those can also be seen as allegories for climate change or a mass extinction event that is human caused. Yes, most of the time it is done through a nuclear strike or a meteor. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
those are more compelling character-based adventures rather than being a story that is so clearly a caricature of what is actually happening. And that's like frustrating because it's like I expect more nuance from an Academy Award nominated film. And there's
Ooh.
one great scene in this film. And in my opinion, it captures like every human being and how they exist on Earth. But my family all felt the same way about this movie. We loved the message, hated the execution. And that's the scene at the end where it's this
Yeah.
found
The
family
dinner.
coming together because everybody else around them is ignoring the problem and or fantasizing about it, like creating a song to create awareness that just becomes popular because people would rather think about the song than the actual issue. And
Yeah.
just seeing that family who has been truthers this whole time, who have used the science to help people, and then seeing them like try to keep it together, it's just so
Yeah.
sad and devastating, but also just so real.
Yeah. I agree. That's
And
That's very heartfelt. I don't know.
yeah.
if you want parody films to like, or satires that do a better job that talk about this sort of subject matter, go watch Doctor Strangelove.
Yeah.
Go watch Idiocracy. I think that movie does a way better job at like social decline in the United States, where it's like it has a lot more fun with it. It's a lot more fantastical, but I think it's still a lot more poignant because I mean Mike Judge is just brilliant.
But a lot of people would just shrug at Mike Judge because his humor is more, not all of his humor is like easily accessible for people, or it
Yeah.
is easily accessible, and that's why they hate it. But there's actually a lot of nuance to the stupidity,
And that's why people love this movie, because it's so easily accessible, because it's just like so
because it feeds everything to you.
basic. Yeah.
It's very blunt.
And it's on Netflix, and that's why everyone watched it. That's why everyone loved it.
See, I don't
know?
fault anybody for liking it or whatnot, but I just think we could do a lot better
You fault one person.
because he worked on it. He's in the
Timothy
movie.
Chalamet's old buddy that he called
Yeah.
up on the phone.
I love you,
Michael
man.
Schusterman.
Yeah, the meme.
I love you, Michael.
We
Meme
love Mike.
himself.
We love Michael.
I do like
Um,
Michael.
You know what's a world-ending movie that I want to see?
What?
Sacrifice. Tarkovsky's.
Amazing. My favorite
It looks-
Tarkovsky.
Really? Okay.
Which is
Oh.
crazy because everybody's like, that's his worst one. And I'm like,
I gotta get around to his stuff more. I still have Stalker and Solaris on my list.
Chris, did you see Knock at the
What?
Cabin? Did
Not-
you see
no,
Knock at the Cabin?
I didn't see Knock at the Cabin.
oh my
Dude.
I have not. Let me put it this way: I have not seen a Shyamalan movie in theaters since After Earth.
You didn't watch.
You saw After Earth
You
in
didn't
theaters?
see Old.
I saw. No, I never saw.
You
Old.
didn't come...
You didn't see Split.
Bro.
Oh wait, I did see Split, but not in theaters.
Oh,
Do you see Glass?
I didn't see Glass.
what the hell? This guy's he's a Shyamalan truther.
Bro,
Shit.
Knock at the Cabin is this is the
Another-
best movie he's ever made. Such a
It,
good.
it is pretty high up there. I don't know if I'm willing to go that far, but I like it a lot.
What do you think is the best
Which
movie,
one do you think
Brandon?
is better?
Split.
I like
Split's
Split.
better?
So
I think-
from the limited I've seen, I say Split.
I've seen like
I think
9
Split's
or
a great
10.
film.
I love Split, but
Yeah.
and then Knock at the Cabin, because Knock at the Cabin, at least the only thing that I will fault it for is it lacks nuance, even if it improves upon with tension and intrigue. Because
Right.
there's a lot of intrigue behind that movie, but once the cherry is popped, you know.
Cherries popped. What people didn't fuck in the movie.
It's an allegory for a climax.
I
Ethan. You get it?
How
How about Boss Baby?
Boss Baby. That's just a good movie and everybody knows it.
No,
And if
it's
they don't
not.
know it, then they're lying. So
Super colossal, big fat
okay.
boss baby.
let's wrap this up, guys. I'm gonna shotgun some of my honorable mentions here.
Yeah. same.
Lars von Trier's Dancer in the Dark. Lars von Trier is a very polarizing director. Dancer in the Dark. Neither of you two have seen it. Please go watch it. It's so good. It's such a polarizing musical. I don't know if musical fans love that movie or if they
There's a
don't.
Lars
because
von
it's
Trier. Wait, Lars von Trier musical?
Yeah.
Or is that
starring
something
Bjork. Starring Bjork, dude.
separate?
And it's fucking amazing. I love that movie. I put Sweetie. Do you guys
Oh
remember
my
watching
god,
Sweetie?
Sweetie, yeah.
I
own
think
that
that's a
movie.
very
I had to do
that's
I
a
had to
very
do an
difficult
assignment on that. Yeah.
and polarizing film about just like difficult people, you know. Gummo, you know, everybody's favorite.
Hey,
Put
you
Gummo on
know,
the list.
Hey, we gotta
I
get
had to
Gummo
put
in there.
Gummo. And then my last one, I put Batman v Superman
I had that. On
I
my
can
short
see that.
list.
because that created such a culture war within people who love Zack Snyder versus the world, you know.
Yeah.
I've never seen like such a filmmaker become such a like a cult icon, you know. I don't know if you can consider him cult yet because like you
No,
know
I could.
he made
Still DC.
okay yeah he made DC movies, but I think down the road like people are gonna see Zack Snyder's trilogy and be like, those are some ballsy movies that pissed off a lot of people, you know. I love them. I love them, but I'm not going as far to say as restore the Snyderverse or I'm like, whatever happens, happens. I got those movies. I'm fine, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Chris, you want to go shoot yours
Sure.
out?
To
Shoot your load.
conjoin with yours, Zack Snyder's Justice League was one of mine. I just think that's an
Yeah.
interesting movie in its existence, as well as like there's a fair number of people who just like don't know the story of why this movie exists. So a lot of people are like,
Yeah.
oh, 4x3, what the fuck? For a
Why is there
superhero
two versions of the same movie and one's like an hour, 2 hours longer? I don't get it. You know.
movie? Yeah. I have another Star Wars, which is Star Wars Last Jedi, just because obviously it's very
Yeah.
polarizing.
The most
I wanted to-
polarizing Star Wars movie, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
This one was for me. Under the Skin. I found this to be pretty polarizing. Even though I now
That's
have a
good.
lot of respect.
I
for this
love
movie.
that one.
It was
Yeah.
pretty
He's
good
coming
movie.
out with this new movie this year. It can.
Really?
Yeah.
Like,
Is
there's-
it science fiction?
Yeah.
It's got a little alien in it.
No.
Oh.
But
Um,
it might be science fiction.
the only other two I've got here are The Room. But now I'm starting to realize that's not really polarizing because everyone kind of agrees on that movie. I don't know why I put that in here. And the last thing on my list is Aquaman.
No.
Brandon, it made $1 billion.
It did.
It
make
made
$1
a billion fucking. That's pretty polarizing. If you hated that much and it made $1 billion.
Hey, just well, okay, then we could say the same thing about fucking Minions, bro.
About what?
Minions.
Oh,
Yeah,
Minions.
sure.
It's pretty polarizing.
I'm not. Those are some polarizing movies. I mean, I was sort of going at the same thing with Mario. You know.
Yeah, I guess.
Hey, this episode
Minion
is brought to you by the Minion Sippa.
From Universal.
You might have heard me. I'm out of my water, but I had this old Minion sipper packing with me the whole episode. I've been sipping off it like a dang old hamster in a hamster cage.
Yeah.
Go Universal, and buy yourself a Minion sipper. This episode's brought to you by Minion sippers.
Brandon, what you got?
You know, I could talk my face blue about Avatar.
Mm.
I think
That movie sucks.
You've got the Trey Parker, Matt Stone duology, the Team America and South Park movie, just because of how offensive they are and what they're tackling. And
fuck it, it's funny.
yeah, but like the South Park people get in trouble all the time for how they portray stuff on TV.
Yeah, they do get a lot of shit.
You could go any Lars von Trier movie, the Nymphomaniac series with its depiction of sex, House of Jack with its depiction of hell and serial killer rapists and whatnot. Saw.
I gotta see more Lars movies. Yeah, Saw. That movie rocks. Some people hate that shit.
But people hate it, and I'm like, it's not even gory. It's just highly stylized. Happiness, Spring Breakers.
Oh, Happiness. God damn, I forgot to put that one on.
The Beach
That's
Bum.
very polarizing. Oh, is that polarizing? Do people not like that one?
Yeah, people don't like that movie. Harmony Korine is one of those guys, you know?
Yeah. I feel like that was like his most accessible film so far.
I mean, the other two Ari Aster movies are critically acclaimed, and audiences seem to like them, but I have run into just as many people who have been like, what the fuck was Midsommar, you know?
I did not like Midsommar the first time I watched it, but I guarantee you I'll love that movie if I watch it again.
I've got a few more. Historically speaking, Citizen Kane, because when it was initially released, audiences hated that movie.
Even now, people are like, some people really don't like it.
My girlfriend hates it, so.
Wow.
Looks back.
I got her.
It's all right.
Scooby-Doo 1 and 2, the live action ones. Hey,
those are fantastic.
We love those movies.
Yes, we do.
3,000 Years of Longing for a newer pick. I think it's a fantastic movie about storytelling, personally. See, but that's, you know. And then lastly,
are you picking polarizing movies or just movies you like that nobody else does?
No, I think polarizing because I think there are a lot of people who like 3,000 Years of Longing. Look at the 5-star ratings. Oh, yeah. And then I'm going to pick, lastly, I was going to pick this as my last film regardless, Jojo Rabbit.
Oh, yeah.
We know a lot of people who despise that movie, but for me, I just think it's like a treat to your kindness. And I just think it's Taika Waititi hate gone too far, if I'm being saying.
Yeah.
Because like he gets carried away with Thor: Love and Thunder, but the rest of his filmography is like genuinely one of the most solid.
He used to be my favorite director ever.
Right. Now Miyazaki is, right?
Yeah. Just came to my senses, I guess.
Yeah, but like
Waititi's not even in my top 10 anymore.
He's not that bad though. Like I can only.
He's not a bad director. No.
Like all of his movies are all really good. Like I don't understand.
I just gotta see more. You know, I just gotta see more from him.
It's the thing about populism when somebody gets too popular.
Yeah.
Like they get thrown under the bus for some reason, and the internet hates them, and I don't know why that happened to him. Because
it's that whole like oh you sold out mentality.
Yeah, but then when he made Jojo Rabbit, like it seemed like everybody loved that movie, and then there were a few vocal haters. But now, whenever I see a Jojo Rabbit post on Twitter, everybody's like, "Oh God, remember how fucking awful that movie was?" And I'm like, I thought we all agreed it was like a really great example of like how to make a movie about like anti-war without showing a war and doing it with taboo subject matter.
Yeah,
and then
they're playing it at the gym the other day.
I
walked into the gym. I walked into the gym during the scene where he sees her shoes, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
What a motivating
when the shoes
movie.
are dangling. I know, like, why are they playing this at the Planet Fitness? All right, I watched it. I watched it while I was running. I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. We'll catch the last 30 minutes of Jojo Rabbit." But yeah, I don't know. I don't understand where the hate came from during Jojo Rabbit, but I kind of did during Thor: Love and Thunder when he was just like, he was presenting himself as like a very uncaring director, you know?
Maybe he wasn't for that movie.
I don't think he was, and that made me like, and then I was like, that's fine if you don't care about the movie you're making, but then there's like that thing where he's breaking down a scene, he's making fun of the visual effects, and I'm like, bro, this was your job, like, and these are people like crunched so many hours. People worked on this for you, and you're making fun of it. That was like so shitty. you know.
But I just don't.
Yeah.
I can't taint a director from one experience, you know, because you didn't
Exactly, which
you
is like I gotta see more. You know, I gotta see how this guy continues. He's only made like 5 or 6 like feature length films.
Yeah,
you
but
know?
like if you look with like all of his cast and crew on the first Thor movie, they were all like positive on him, and then like all of his other movies are really well made, and like who's seen Boy, you know, or Hunt for the Wilder People, you know, I feel like a lot of people probably know like of like the yeah we all have, but like
Of the non-stacked
of
heads,
the non-stacked heads, who among us is like been,
stacked
like,
legion.
Among Us.
Oh!
it's like you go back and you look at people and they're retroactively changing their opinions on a director just because they made one comment on another film that obviously wasn't getting love and support from either the studio, the
Love and
director, or the stars. Yeah, exactly. And it's like all the other movies are like small, and the one big movie he did was like everybody sort of kind of agreed that it was one of the better Marvel movies. And now it's not
Yeah.
because people hate him. And I'm like, I don't get that. Just separate the artist.
Who knows?
Anyway,
Anyways, let's end the show with what did we learn? Huh? What did we learn this episode?
I got something we learned.
What did you learn, Chris?
We learned that it's okay if you disagree with someone on a movie because it's just a movie and it doesn't fucking matter.
It's okay to disagree. It's not okay to when you're leaving the movie with them to like distance yourself from that person. And act like they don't exist. Especially when, you know, you and your friend thought it'd be a really great idea to bring you guys to this movie because you and that friend really enjoyed it when they saw it, and they're showing you guys, and yeah.
I learned.
I don't. Yeah, what did you learn?
I learned that we have a very special surprise to show our viewers next week.
Oh
Wow.
yes, big announcement. We got a big
guys,
announcement.
we went too long on. We forgot to talk about the big announcement. So, just stay tuned for next week. Big announcement. Just get ready. It's let's just say Stack's not going to be the same once we tell you guys. But sorry, I forgot to tell you this episode. Next episode, we promise we'll go all into it. The big announcement. So that'll do it for this episode of Stacked. Thank you all so much for listening. Yeah, this is not another video episode, but I'm just like, did you guys prefer that? I'm wondering if you guys honestly preferred the video. I'll just keep doing it. But
I had coworkers watch it.
Yeah,
they were like, "Oh, we found out you did a podcast and we watched it."
I mean, it did get significantly more views.
Do it for the views. Do it for the Vine.
Views. Do it for the fucking Vine. We should just make our podcast as 10-second clips. What are we doing?
YouTube Shorts is where the revenue is.
Yeah.
Get your asses in the comment section down below.
You heard the man. Get in the. All right, cut it. I'm done.
Bye, guys.
It's a me, Amari.